All right, let's jump right into this. We're going to break down the massive rivalry between the US and China by looking at the really deep forces that are pushing these two giants around.
So, are we actually headed for a war? This isn't just some crazy headline to grab your attention. It's a question based on a very real and very powerful historical pattern, one that we've seen play out with empires for centuries. To really get what's going on today, we've got to go back in time, way back actually, to ancient Greece. Because there's this idea from back then that still kind of haunts the world today, and it perfectly explains why these moments, when a new power rises, are just so dangerous.
It's called Thucydides' trap. The name comes from a Harvard scholar, Graham Allison, who was studying the historian Thucydides. He saw that the war back then wasn't just because Athens was aggressive, it was because the rise of Athens put a deep-seated fear into the established power, Sparta. The trap isn't about good guys and bad guys, it's about the incredible stress that happens when the top dog sees a new challenger coming up fast.
Okay, so check this out. According to Allison's research, this exact situation has happened 16 times in the last 500 years. And get this, in 12 of those cases, it ended in all-out war. 12 out of 16. That is a scary track record. So yeah, you can see why everyone is watching the US and China relationship so closely.
So this historical fear, this trap, it really sets the stage for what we're seeing now. Two global powers with two completely different visions for how the world ought to work. This isn't just about who's bigger or stronger, it's a fundamental clash of ideas.
On one side, you've got the United States. Its strategy, for the most part, can be summed up as containment. The goal is to keep the current global system running pretty much as is, which makes sense because it's a system the US helped build. Official policy now calls China a strategic rival, viewing its growth as a direct challenge to American power.
China, on the other hand, sees things differently. They talk about their peaceful rise. They argue they're not trying to blow up the whole system, but to change it into a multipolar world. In that version of the future, there isn't one superpower, but several. And in their view, that just restores China to its rightful place in the world.
So you've got these two clashing visions. Where's the conflict actually playing out right now? Well, it's all about the economy. The global economy has become the main arena, the primary battlefield for this competition.
For the US, especially under the America First idea, the weapon of choice has been tariffs. The logic is pretty straightforward. Use these taxes on Chinese goods to protect American industries, shrink the huge trade deficit, and try to force Beijing to change its ways.
And yeah, that quote pretty much says it all, doesn't it? It signals a massive change from how the US operated for decades. It's a clear move away from promoting free trade and a big step towards a more aggressive, nationalist economic fight.
But China's not just playing defense, not at all. Their response is a really ambitious long-term plan to jump ahead. The goal is to stop being just the world's factory, making everybody's stuff, and become a high-tech powerhouse that leads the world in the industries of tomorrow.
And this is the playbook right here. It's called Made in China 2025. And just look at this list. We're talking about robotics, green energy, AI, basically everything that's going to define the future. The plan is to pour state money into their own companies to make them the best in the world.
So with all this economic pressure coming from the US, how is China supposed to handle it? Well, Beijing came up with a whole new economic game plan. It's designed to make the country a lot more resilient and way less dependent on anyone else.
It's called the dual circulation strategy. Think of it in two parts. The first and most important part is internal circulation. That means making their own massive domestic market the main engine for growth. The second part, external circulation, isn't about cutting themselves off, but about being smarter and more strategic about who they trade with.
And a huge piece of that external strategy is building stronger ties with new partners. A perfect example is what they're doing with the ASEAN countries in Southeast Asia. By boosting trade with them, China creates new markets for its goods and gives those countries more options so they don't have to pick a side between the US and China.
All of this, the trade wars, the new strategies, it's all leading to one place. The final and probably the most important battleground, the race to control technology. This is where economics and national security become the exact same thing.
And this is really the whole ballgame. For China, this is no longer just about having a strong economy, it's about survival. Their absolute #1 goal is technological self-sufficiency. They need to be able to make their own advanced technology, especially the really critical stuff, like semiconductors, without relying on anyone else.
And if you need proof that they're serious, here it is. China has now mandated that at least half of the computer chips used in their public data centers have to be made by Chinese companies. It's a direct order from the top telling their industries to move away from foreign suppliers like Intel and move toward their own champions like Huawei.
So at the end of the day, this rivalry is about way more than just who gets to be number one. As both the US and China push for self-reliance, we could be heading toward a world that's literally splitting in two. Think about it. Two separate technology systems, two different trade blocks, maybe even two different internets. And whether we end up living in one global system or two is maybe the single biggest question of the 21st century.